call on Mr Kinahan to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I welcome the opportunity to speak today in what I hope will be a healthy debate and which will send OFM-DFM a clear instruction to put right an inequality which should have been addressed years ago. I would, though, like to start with an observation. I believe it's totally reprehensible that there's no ministerial response to this debate, and I hope that the Speaker will follow what he's been asked to do by our whip. This motion should not be something that conjures up fear or suspicion. It should be an issue which truly unites this House. How can any political party that claims to be committed to equality be content to oversee what is an overt discrimination in how our teachers are recruited? They can't, because it would be rank hypocrisy. Before I get into the detail behind this motion, I'd quickly like to pay tribute to one of my party colleagues, Jeff Dudgeon. Jeff is no stranger to championing equality in Northern Ireland, and once again has played a pivotal role in supporting the motion here today. He also just happens to be a renowned bugbear to executive departments who, for whatever reason, believe that they can get away with holding public information. I would also like to pay particular thanks to Austin Morgan, a barrister at the London and Northern Ireland Bar, who has proved invaluable in casting his expert legal opinion on this matter. Both men, I'm pleased to say, are in the public gallery for this debate, and I would encourage any member to approach them at the end and engage with them further on this topic. Mr Speaker, to provide a very quick background to this debate, in order to apply for teaching posts in Catholic-maintained nursery and primary schools, applicants must possess a recognised religious education certificate. This certificate is supposed to ensure that teachers in Catholic-maintained schools have an understanding of the Church, its teaching and way of life, to enable them to contribute to the maintenance of the ethos of the school, and to assist parents in educating their children in the faith according to the principles of Catholic education. That appears to be all very noble, but should every single primary school teacher in the maintained sector require it? The answer is clearly no. I will, however, later go on to explain what I propose as an alternative. For many people, the requirement of primary school teachers in our single biggest sector to hold a certificate which effectively eliminates up to half of the potential workforce would sound grossly discriminatory, and that's because it is. It was discriminatory within the PSNI, and it is discriminatory in our education system. In 1976, Parliament exempted employment as a teacher in a school from an anti-discriminatory legislation. This is the so-called teachers' exemption. In 2000, when the European Union provided for general anti-discrimination law, supposedly to improve labour flexibility in the single market, the UK secured a continuing Northern Ireland opt-out in the directive permitting religious discrimination, i.e. actually allowing religious discrimination. Rather than it being something we can be proud of, that fact that teachers in Northern are the only occupational group in 27 member states to be legally unprotected should bring a huge degree of shame to our equality laws. The teacher exception is now nearly 40 years old and was to be abolished a decade ago, in all secondary schools at least, in the long-forgotten Single Equality Bill. The two Equality Commission reports of 2000 and 2004, written because of the review obligation inserted into the 1976 Fair Employment Act, were followed by the Commission saying that reform was needed. When reading the Article 15 of the Council Directive 2000/78/EC of the 27th November 2000, establishing a general framework for equal treatment in employment and occupation, it says the teacher's exemption should remain in order to maintain a balance of opportunity in employment for teachers. What a contradictory statement. trying to keep the discrimination law in order to balance opportunities for teachers when half of them are excluded. I strongly believe that writing the exception into EU law in 2000 was an exercise in deception, and it's long over time that it was reversed. At least when the Education and Library Board Circular TNC 2009/2 on equal opportunities for teachers in schools was issued 4 years ago, the exception ceased to apply for all controlled schools. The circular stated up front in paragraph 2.1, the aim of this policy is to communicate the commitment of the Board to the promotion of equality of opportunity. It is the policy of the Board and the Board of Governors to provide employment equality to all, irrespective of, inter alia, religious belief and political opinion. Even if discrimination on grounds of religion in the appointment of teachers was still permissible, it had become a disciplinary matter for any appointment panel so to do. This was a welcome move, but again, it was not necessarily being followed. The Minister stated last December that the Education and Library Boards told his department that they do not monitor the composition of teachers, applicants for employment and appointments in controlled schools on the basis of religious belief and a political opinion, as there is no statutory obligation to do so. However, he went on to say that the boards are aware of the requirement detailed in that circular. So we don't even know the extent of the current balance of opportunity, as the monitoring of teacher appointments promised in the same circular never actually happened. It is clear that this whole area is in desperate need of reform. Whilst OFM-DFM may cower away from their responsibilities, I believe the task comes down to us, the Assembly, to change it. That is why I'm pleased to say that on top of the huge number of other areas in the Education Bill that need amending, I intend to table a raft of amendments to remove this exception. Again, I pay thanks to Austin for his invaluable support in this regard. For anyone who believes that removing the exception is some sort of attack on the ethos of CCMS schools, they are wrong. I'm well aware of the important role which CCMS primary school teachers play in the preparation of young people for communion, for instance, and also their excellent education throughout. Now, whilst I'm going to make judgment on that in either way, I do propose that some protection remains in place for CCMS schools. In my amendments to the Education Bill, I will propose up to 20% of teaching jobs for the teaching of religion in various ways. This 1 in 5 rule would be similar to what is already the case in England through the 1998 School Standards and Framework Act. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I would urge all of us in the Chamber today to really consider whether discrimination in the employment of our teachers is something to be proud of. The young people whom our education system is responsible for are becoming increasingly more diverse, and yet we still have old, draconian laws in place. I've been pleased to see recent moves by CCMS to open up their schools a little bit. However, if they don't go further than just a 3-year stopgap, then unfortunately these will be seen as little more than gestures. While some parties may talk a good game on their vision for a single education system, the fact that the DUP leader or any of the other 3 executive ministers in the OFM-DFM couldn't be bothered even to respond to this debate shows how insincere they really are on this matter. I would hope, though, that the Education Minister will be listening to this debate, but whilst the responsibility to change it may lie with OFM-DFM, he should realise that his silence on this issue is the equivalence of his complacency. Thank you.